Hello YouTube. I'm coming to you today live and direct again from my small dining room here, and today's topic will be the first of what will be a series of 2 or 3 videos on the one thing that makes all us knife collectors just causes us more consternation, I guess, than anything at all, and that's the steel in the knife. From the very simple carbon steels that were found in the Viking graves, such as this nice replica by Ellie right here, to ones like this, which is a 400-year-old Chris with meteoric iron in it, and nickel, and I'll try to move that. I don't know. I think you can see the bands in there as it was forged. That would be a type of Damascus called pattern weld Damascus, as with this Bowie here, where layers are forged one upon another, folded over, heated, folded again, forged, welded together. To this, which is at the moment unknown. This is probably the most valuable knife in my collection, to me anyway. This was my father's. He carried it in World War II. It was made for him by an Italian prisoner of war. The handle here is B17 plexiglass. The blade is made from a French file, and it was made with dentistry tools, of all things. And I know it's a good knife because it skinned countless deer, processed them. It looks like kind of a strange knife to use for that purpose, but my dad trusted it. He used it for a long time. And I guess when you trust your life to something, you know, maybe a simple thing like gutting a deer just doesn't hold a lot of consternation for you. For all my Australian friends out there, this small knife in front of me is a work in progress. It's made from 440C. It's engraved. Just a ton of work has been done to this on both sides. It's been passed to me for final finishing. Obviously it's a display piece. It could cut if you wanted it to. It's been worked on for quite a few years, and is going to really be pretty, I think, when it's totally complete. I think it's been in the works either 12 or 17 years that the owner has worked on it with over 4 different makers. He's an extremely good friend of mine, and I'm hoping I can do it justice. Some are made out of, probably, this blade was could have been a 57 Chevy or maybe an old Oldsmobile. This was made in, judging from the handle, Indonesia, Java, somewhere over there. There are people that are much better versed in that than I am. But it's probably just a spring steel, whatever they could get their hands on. And what I really wanted to speak about today is steel composition and how we can figure out exactly what we have, what's in various knives, and what we can expect from those steels. When you're looking to buy a knife, obviously you probably have a task in mind for that knife. You know, stain resistance is high on your list. You would want a so-called stainless steel. I think that stain resistant is a much better title. There are steels that are stainless, but they're not really steels. They're cobalt, or they're a material called H1. I don't think either one of them carries enough to be enough of the it's either steel, carbon, something to be classified as a steel. But how do we tell? Well, for every steel that's out there, A2, O1, 154 cm, you know, anything that's been made, it's been made for a specific purpose. And unfortunately, us knife collectors are pretty low on the list. So just about without exception, all these steels have been made for another purpose. Crucible, the steel company, specialty steel company, did develop and is marketing a line of steel just for you know, knife blades. Others, such as 12C27, N690, were developed originally as razor blade steels. Obviously, the jump from that to a knife steel is not that great, so they were put into service for that. 12C27, I think N690 both have been around since the early part of the 1900s. They're fairly old steel. When we want to find out about whatever particular steel we think we might want to use, there's no mystery steels, there's no unknowns, there's no secrets that I know of. You can go online, and for every steel you'll find something like this. It's a technical data sheet. It tells you the exact makeup of that steel. It tells you the purpose it was designed for. It tells you how to work that steel. You'll hear terms like tempering, hardening, normalizing, annealing, you know, heat ranges. All of this refers to the optimum way to treat this steel so that when you're done with it, you will get the best product for the particular task that you have in mind. Some of the steels, A2 for instance, I believe is made for shears and coin forming dies, all kinds of things. The heat treat would be different for all of these. But online you can find one of these for any of the steels. This particular one that I did here, for instance, is A2. It tells me it's an air hardening tool steel. Then it goes on to list typical applications: blanking dies, knurls, rolls, brick and mold liners, mandrels, sand slingers, coin dies, master hobs. I don't know what a hob is, but you can make one out of A2. Shear knives, coal forming tools, molds, slitter knives, forming dies, and spindles. Right below that, and I get all that here, and right below that it tells me exactly what that steel is made out of. It tells me the carbon content. It tells me there's manganese in there and how much. It tells me there's a little bit of sulfur, a little bit of phosphorus and silicon, about 4.75 to 5.50% carbon, or excuse me, chromium. There's vanadium, there's tungsten, there's molybdenum, or from one of my favorite old movies, Molly Be Damned. The last page here gives me all kinds of technical information, and it tells me how to harden the metal. It tells me the rate of heating. It tells me the preheat temperature. It tells me the hardening temperature. It tells me how long. It tells me the quench medium when I'm done. In this case, it's air. To temper, it gives me the tempering heat ranges, and it tells me how long, and it tells me the approximate Rockwell C-scale hardness that I'll get when I'm done if I follow this data sheet. It tells me the attributes of the steel: the wear resistance, the toughness, resistance to softening, machinability, grindability, distortion in heat treating, resistance to cracking, resistance to decarbonization, All of these facts can be got on every steel online with very little trouble. When a friend of mine's father, or excuse me, when one of my friends, rather, you saw him in the last video, Randy, had a brick and mortar knife store. We would have people come in all the time, and we heard all of the stories. This was my grandfather's knife, and you know, it will just hold an edge like you wouldn't believe. And the reason is because whenever he would make a loaf of cornbread or a pan of cornbread in the oven, the second it came out of the oven, while it was still piping hot, he would stick that knife blade in there and then let it cool. And believe it or not, we heard that one more than once, much more than once. And I tried to explain to the people, and I'm sure Randy did, and after a while we just gave up and said, okay. But at first we would say, well, you know, if it did anything to the knife blade, if we could get it hot enough to get it to the annealing temperature, it would have actually drawn the temper out of the blade. Probably it didn't do anything, except maybe ruin a halfway decent loaf of cornbread. But there's so many myths, so many legends about steel. I think that most everything now is pretty well documented, pretty well known. These steels, for instance, the Damascus steel that's in this blade, I said earlier that this was a type called pattern welded Damascus that was made by folding and welding and heating and folding and welding the steel back on itself to get this very beautiful pattern that we see in the blade. There's another type called Wootz Damascus, and basically you had a pattern that formed in the steel because it was forged at a very low temperature. This was a byproduct of the type of forges that the people in the area at the time could build. They really couldn't build a forge that would you know, work at a higher temperature like the modern forges will now. And once they did their heat treat, their annealing, their normalizing, this nice watery pattern came up on the surface of the steel. Any steel that you care to name, again, friends, it's all documented. You can get a data sheet like this on anything. So when you have a particular knife in mind, or perhaps you're going to start making knives, do some research online, ask some people that are in the business, folks at knife shows. There are folks that sell steels. They specialize in them. They can tell you all about them. They can tell you the success that other people have had with them. If you give them your specifications, you know, are you looking for something that's really wear resistant? Are you looking for a steel that's super tough? They can give you the best compromise steel to use for all of these things. In an arc knife like this, for instance, you know, this thing's probably going on the wall. You don't want to look at a pile of rust 3 years from now. So it's made from 440C. It's an excellent steel for that. If you wanted to cut with it, you certainly could. So I'd just like to encourage you to go out and you know, don't take people's word for it. In this day and time, you have access to the internet, and obviously if you're watching this, you can certainly avail yourself of this. Most of these, if you just type in the steel by its common name, A2, 440C, 154CM, etc., it'll pop up a list 2 miles long that you can go to. You can get these data charts. You can see pretty much what you can expect from any steel. So try to you know, just figure out exactly what it is you're going to do with the knife. Find the data chart, check it out, and go from there. And this is the end of part 1, and we'll move on to part 2 as soon as I get a chance. And we're going to talk about sharpening, the not so much how, but the different kinds of sharpening and a little bit of the theory behind it. So we'll see you then. Bye.